Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 23 female, lost my mom to brain cancer when I was 15. My mom was on hospice for 9 months. She lived longer than expected but declined regularly. A month before she died, I found out my dad was having an affair with her best friend. The two of them claimed they were supporting and leaning on each other, and it wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. My mom was too far gone to be told. She lost a lot of her bodily functions, and her hearing and vision were poor too. I was sick, and I told my dad I was never coming back home, and I would be moving in with my maternal grandparents. He tried to stop me, but I wasn't listening. When Mom died, I was with her, and I went home to my grandparents afterward. The day of the funeral, I learned my dad and Mom's best friend had an affair for years before Mom got sick, and it wasn't a we leaned on each other through grief thing like they claimed. My dad even got her pregnant when I was 7. She terminated the pregnancy so Mom would never find out. This is actually true because my dad confirmed it. I cut off all contact with my dad and his affair partner. I told my paternal grandparents I wanted to hear nothing about Dad and her. I did not want to be invited over when they were there, and I did not want any help with those relationships because there wasn't going to be one. They told me they respected that. My dad died a few weeks ago, so did affair partner. My paternal grandparents told me about it and said they had a 2-year-old daughter together and that no arrangements were made for her. They asked me to consider contacting the social worker overseeing her care and say I wanted to take care of her. They said that would help me out financially with that, but that she needed a home, and I was her sister. I told them I wasn't contacting anybody and I was not taking in some random child. They told me she wasn't some random child. She's my sister. They told me to forget the affair, who her parents are, and just think that she is my flesh and blood sibling, and the only people willing to take her is us. I told them that was not true, and I was not willing to take her. I said they could take her if they were so concerned, but I would not be doing so. I don't know how true this is, but my grandparents told me affair partner's family had already been contacted and declined to take her, and she was with a temporary foster family. My paternal grandparents tried to change my mind, but I stood firm. They then asked me if I would help out and have a relationship with her if they took her in. I said no. I told them I am not helping anyone take care of her, and I do not want a relationship. They told me to meet her at least once and then see. I said no. I told them the decision is firmly up to them, but they need to be aware they will not have my help. They contacted my maternal grandparents and gave them a hard time. They told my maternal grandparents to talk me into giving this a chance, because it wasn't good for me to hold such a cold stance against a literal child who is related to me whether I like it or not. My maternal grandparents told them where to go, and then they gave me a heads up. I told my paternal grandparents if they did not stop, I would cut all contact between us as well, whether they took her in or not. I said none of this is my problem, and I refused to make it my problem. They tried to argue with me that they can't do it on their own, and I told them I would be blocking them since they refused to listen. They begged me not to and said they would stop. That lasted 5 days and they started again, so I blocked them. But then they called my maternal grandparents again and gave them shit again and said some very unkind things about me, putting it mildly. I don't want to stop them from rescuing her, as they put it. I would never tell them what to do with their own lives and home. All I can tell them is what I won't do. This child is innocent, but so are lots of other children, and that's how I see her, as just any other child. Am I an a-hole? Not the a-hole. They are literally trying to pawn the child off on you because they don't want to deal with raising her themselves. Tell them they can put the child up for adoption, so she doesn't have to be put in the foster system. Then show your parents how to block them too. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry paternal grandparents are forcing you to cut them out of your life. I would never consider adopting the result of my parents' affair. You are only 23 yourself. Keep them blocked and continue building your life into something great. Not the a-hole. Nobody should take in a child in these circumstances unless they really want to. It's not only not fair on them, it's also not fair on the child to be with someone who doesn't want them. What people also forget what is about genetics. What if this child is a mini-me of her mother, and that's all you can see? You can't love her, and her presence gives you trauma.
Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment.
I, 30 female, got married 6 months ago to the love of my life, Tom, 32 male. The wedding was supposed to be a perfect day, a culmination of all the love and hard work we'd put into planning it. Everything was going smoothly. The venue was gorgeous, the weather was perfect, and I was surrounded by friends and family. But as you've probably guessed from the title, it didn't stay perfect for long. Let me give you some background about my sister Rachel, 33 female, and the complicated dynamics in our family. Rachel and I were close when we were kids, but as we grew older, the relationship became strained. I knew there was some sibling rivalry brewing, but I always chalked it up to normal stuff that most siblings go through. Different personalities, different paths in life. It wasn't until my wedding day that I realized just how deep her resentment ran. Growing up, I'll admit, I did receive a lot of praise from our parents. I was the more conventional child. Good grades, followed all the rules, went to college, got a decent job, and later met Tom, who's the most amazing and supportive partner I could have ever asked for. Meanwhile, Rachel's life was more tumultuous. She struggled in school, bounced from job to job, and went through a string of bad relationships. I never thought our parents treated her badly, but looking back, I can see how she might have felt overshadowed. Rachel has always been more of a free spirit, and while our parents didn't outright show favoritism, at least not to my face, I can see how their pride in my achievements might have affected her. Still, I never thought it was anything too serious. I've always tried to be supportive of Rachel, even when she was going through hard times. But as the years went by, she grew more distant, and it became harder to connect with her. I figured it was just the natural course of sibling relationships, especially when your lives take such different paths. When I announced my engagement to Tom, Rachel seemed happy for me at first. She helped with some of the wedding planning, even offered to be the maid of honor. While I was thrilled to have her involved, I could tell something was off during the months leading up to the wedding. Rachel started making little passive-aggressive comments here and there, like, "Must be nice to have everything handed to you," or "You're so lucky everything just works out for you." I didn't pay much attention to them at the time, brushing them off as harmless sibling banter. What I didn't know was that Rachel had been harboring feelings for Tom. I never picked up on it, and neither did Tom. He's never given her any indication that he reciprocated her feelings, or even knew about them. But as I later found out, she'd been silently nursing a crush on him ever since I introduced them. I had no idea what was bubbling beneath the surface until it all exploded at my wedding. The ceremony was beautiful. Tom and I exchanged our vows, and I was overwhelmed with happiness. I thought the day couldn't get any better. The reception was in full swing, and after the dinner, it was time for the speeches. My dad's speech was lovely. My maid of honor, my best friend Lily, gave a sweet and heartfelt toast. And then, it was Rachel's turn. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. She had seemed fine throughout the day, though I had noticed her drinking more than usual. But when she took the microphone, it was like a completely different person was standing there. She slurred her words and stumbled a bit, but at first, I thought it was just nerves. I quickly realized it was something far worse. She started her speech by congratulating Tom and me, but then Rachel looked directly at me and said, "You've always had everything, haven't you? The beauty, the success, and now, even the man I love." The entire room fell silent. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Rachel continued, rambling about how I had always been our parents' favorite, how they had showered me with praise while ignoring her struggles, how I had always been the perfect one while she felt invisible. She went on to claim that Tom was the man she had secretly loved for years, and that it wasn't fair that I had stolen him from her, just like I had stolen everything else from her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tom looked completely stunned. Our guests were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, whispering to each other, clearly unsure of what to do. My parents were horrified, but they didn't say anything to stop her. Rachel ended her speech by raising her glass and saying, "Here's to my perfect sister. I hope you're happy with the life you've ruined. Then she dropped the microphone and left, leaving me in shock and humiliation. I could feel every eye in the room on me, and all I wanted to do was disappear. Tom immediately grabbed my hand, trying to reassure me, but I was too numb to respond. My wedding day, the day that was supposed to be one of the happiest of my life, had just been destroyed by my own sister. After Rachel's speech, she disappeared from the reception, and I didn't see her for the rest of the night. The rest of the evening was a blur. I tried to put on a brave face for the sake of my guests, but inside, I was devastated. My parents were mortified and apologized profusely. In the days following the wedding, Rachel completely ghosted me. She ignored my texts and calls, and when I asked my parents what was going on, they just said she needed time to cool off. They acknowledged that what she did was wrong, but they were more concerned about Rachel's mental state than how much she had hurt me. A few weeks later, my parents called me and said they wanted to talk. When I went over to their house, they told me that Rachel had been struggling with jealousy and feelings of inadequacy for years, and that her outburst at the wedding was a result of all the resentment she had built up over time. They said she felt deeply sorry for what she had done, but was too embarrassed to face me. Then they dropped the real bombshell. They wanted me to pay for Rachel's therapy. Apparently, Rachel had agreed to seek professional help to work through her issues, but she couldn't afford it on her own. My parents argued that since I was financially better off, thanks to my job and Tom's income, it would be only fair for me to help out, given that I had been the cause of her breakdown. I was stunned. Not only were they asking me to pay for therapy for the sister who had ruined my wedding, but they were essentially blaming me for her problems. I told them that I wasn't opposed to Rachel getting therapy. In fact, I thought it was a great idea. But I didn't see why I should be the one paying for it, especially when Rachel hadn't even reached out to apologize for what she did. I explained to my parents that if Rachel truly wanted to make amends, the first step would be acknowledging the harm she caused. I wasn't going to shell out money for her therapy unless she took some responsibility for her actions. A simple apology would go a long way toward mending our relationship, but without it, I felt like paying for her therapy would just enable her to continue avoiding accountability. My parents were not happy with my response. They said I was being selfish and that this was about helping Rachel get better, not about an apology. They insisted that Rachel's mental health was the priority, and I needed to let go of the past for the sake of the family. According to them, I was being vindictive by withholding help, and they implied that I was the one standing in the way of Rachel's healing. I tried to stay calm and explain my side. I told them that I wasn't holding a grudge. I understood that Rachel needed help, and I wanted her to get better. But I also needed her to acknowledge the hurt she caused, not just to me, but to Tom and the guests who witnessed her meltdown. I didn't think it was unreasonable to ask for an apology before agreeing to help pay for therapy. But my parents didn't see it that way. They argued that Rachel was too fragile right now to face the consequences of what she had done, and that pushing her to apologize could cause her more emotional distress. They said it was my responsibility as the more stable sibling to help her without conditions. The conversation escalated quickly. My father, usually calm and rational, raised his voice and accused me of always lording my success over Rachel. My mother started crying, saying that Rachel was their problem child, but that didn't mean she didn't deserve help. They kept saying that since I had always had things easier, better grades, better job, a happy marriage, it was my turn to support my sister when she needed it most. I was stunned. It felt like they were rewriting history, framing Rachel as the victim of my achievements and using that as a reason to guilt me into paying for her therapy. I was hurt that they couldn't see my side of things, that they weren't acknowledging the devastation she had caused at my wedding. All I wanted was for Rachel to own up to what she had done, and in return, I would have gladly helped. When I continued to refuse to pay for therapy without an apology, my parents dropped the ultimatum threat. They would go no contact with me if I didn't help Rachel. They said they couldn't stand by and watch one daughter refuse to support the other in her time of need. I was heartbroken. I stood my ground, though it hurt to do so. I told them that I loved them and Rachel, but I wasn't going to be manipulated into fixing a situation that Rachel created and refused to take responsibility for. My parents left the house without another word, and true to their threat, they've gone no contact with me. I haven't heard from them in months, and the last I heard from extended family, Rachel is in therapy, funded by my parents. Since that day, I've been dealing with a lot of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I'm angry at Rachel for ruining my wedding and never owning up to her behavior.
On the other hand, I'm heartbroken that my parents would choose her over me, especially when I wasn't asking for much, just a simple apology. Tom has been incredibly supportive throughout all of this. He's reassured me that I did the right thing by setting boundaries and standing up for myself. But it's hard not to feel guilty. I've always been the good daughter, the one who kept the peace in the family, and now I'm the one who's been cut off. I miss my parents, but I also know that I can't cave to their demands just to keep the peace. It's not fair for them to expect me to clean up the mess that Rachel made. It's been 6 months since the wedding, and she still hasn't reached out. I haven't received so much as a text from her, let alone an apology. Part of me wonders if I should have just paid for the therapy, even without the apology, for the sake of keeping the family together. But the other part of me knows that I would have been compromising my own self-respect in the process. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my sister's therapy unless she apologizes to me first? OP has been put in an impossible position. OP's sister ruined what should have been one of the happiest days of OP's life. And now OP's parents are essentially gaslighting OP into believing it's her responsibility to fix her mess. It's great that she's seeking therapy, but OP is absolutely right to expect an apology first. You can't heal a relationship without accountability, and paying for her therapy without even a shred of remorse on her part would be enabling her further. OP's parents are in the wrong here. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. It's amazing how your parents are focusing on Rachel's mental health without ever considering how you might be feeling after your sister hijacked your wedding with a drunken confession that she's been in love with your husband. That's a huge betrayal, and yet they expect you to act like it never happened. It's not just about the money for therapy. It's about the fact that Rachel hasn't even acknowledged what she did. Your parents choosing to go no contact over this speaks volumes about their enabling behavior. I'm sorry you're going through this, but you are absolutely in the right here. Definitely not the a-hole. Therapy is about taking responsibility for your own actions, not getting other people to clean up your messes for you. Your sister needs to face what she did, and your parents are completely missing the point by trying to sidestep that accountability. It's ridiculous for them to demand you pay for her therapy without any recognition of the hurt she caused. You've been more than reasonable in expecting an apology before offering any support. Don't let them make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. You deserve that apology, and it's the least Rachel could do after what happened. My mom's been dating her new boyfriend for a year now, and recently, she's been taking their relationship more seriously by going on road trips out of state to meet his parents and kids. It wasn't a surprise to hear shortly after that she inviting them to Thanksgiving. Whatever, I didn't care much. This was obviously an attempt for us to meet each other since, to this point, we know nothing about them. They are complete strangers. I barely even know their names. What caught my attention was when she made a comment about how I'd be sleeping in my brother's room. I have my own room, of course, with my own bed. I'm 19 years old waiting to get into trade school. My brother, on the other hand, is significantly younger than I am, and is, quite frankly, a whiny crap. Apparently, since my room is also now the guest room, she's going to give my bed, my room, to his kid. Naturally, I was outraged. I asked her to clarify. Maybe I heard her wrong. Nope. She affirmed her intentions to me, saying that how we as the hosts are to make sure they are as comfortable as possible and feel welcome. I know I live here, but I would not consider myself a host. Of course, I objected and arguments ensued. I quickly proposed 3 easy solutions, such as they could sleep on cots, an inflatable mattress, or just sleep on the ground. None satisfied her. She seems content on making me give up my bed, like she's trying to make a good first impression on how welcoming we are. She reiterates time and time again how this is how it's supposed to go, that whenever you have company over, you're supposed to give up your bed for that company, like it's some unspoken general rule. I wouldn't have a problem with giving up my bed for my grandparents, or even their grandparents, because they are old and would actually require a bed. Meanwhile, his kids that are coming over are near my age and has no special accommodations that need to be met. So why is it so hard that they sleep on the floor or couch? She is trying so hard to be liked, to be welcoming, that she is essentially kicking me to the curb over his kids, and I won't stand for that. According to her, they're good kids, and I'm sure they are. I just don't care that they are coming. I don't want to meet them, and I want to sleep in my bed at night. My own family is turning to crap, and I don't want an extension. I'm posting this because I intend to fight her, and I don't care if they feel unwelcome. The arguments are already getting uglier and uglier.
I'm not sure how far this will go, but I will not sleep on the floor in my brother's room because my mom decided to kick me out for her boyfriend's kids. I live here. I sleep here. This is my space. Get out. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. And why wouldn't the youngest be the one to give up his bed? That's the unspoken rule, that the youngest gives up their bed, not the oldest. Not the a-hole. She's given you a sneak peek at how she'll treat you and your younger brother if the guy and his kids move in or they get married. She's already showing favoritism towards them by kicking you out of your room altogether when they're only visiting. Plus, you've never met these people. They could steal from you or damage your things. If she insists on you giving up your room, then make arrangements to stay somewhere else with a friend for the weekend until they leave. It's her house, so she can make whatever sleeping arrangements she wants. That doesn't mean you have to stay there and play happy family for the new boyfriend. My brother and his wife had their first child about 2 months ago. They live about an hour from my wife and I, and we've gone to visit them a few times since baby arrived. Since we didn't really get a family Thanksgiving last year, my wife and I decided to host for my family this year. We sent out an email to everyone letting them know our plan and got confirmations from pretty much everyone, except my brother. He called me a few days later and said that he and sister-in-law weren't sure they could make it. I asked him why, and he said that they already have to attend sister-in-law's Thanksgiving with her mom and stepdad, and then go to her dad and stepmom's as well. I told him I was sorry to hear that and pretty much left it at that. The next day he called again and said that after talking with sister-in-law, he wanted to ask if we could change our hosting to the day after Thanksgiving so that they could attend, as they wanted to see some of our family that they haven't seen in a while. I told him I wasn't going to change the schedule as I had already gotten confirmations from a lot of people for Thanksgiving Day, and I'm not going to change it all just for them. He got kind of frustrated by it, but didn't push it. Then, a couple days after that, he called again. He said that sister-in-law's dad and stepmom changed their schedule, so they are planning on coming to our place Thanksgiving Day again. Okay, awesome. Looking forward to it. But then he asked if a cousin of ours was planning on bringing his dog. I told him that I told cousin it was okay to bring his dog so that his dog and our dog could play together in the yard. He said I need to ask cousin not to bring his dog as his dog is high energy and he's worried about it around their baby. I told him if he wanted to do that on his own, he's more than welcome, but I'm not going to be the one to talk to cousin about it as I already gave him the okay. I also told him that my dog will be there anyway, so not sure why having 2 dogs instead of 1 is such a big deal. He then said that he thought maybe we could keep our dog separate from the baby for the day too. I told him this was all getting to be too much, and he was asking for a lot of accommodations for someone who was just coming over for a few hours and not helping with food or cleaning up. He got mad at me and said it's going to be hard for them to help with anything due to the kid. I told him I understand that, but that doesn't mean I need to make every arrangement and accommodation specifically for him. I told him literally no one else has called to ask for any special accommodation, just him. It kind of devolved into a fight from there, with both of us calling each other an a-hole. He thinks I'm being unreasonable by not making a few easy accommodations for them. I told him they can either accept the invitation as is or not come. Word got around the family about it, and now my wife and my mom are on my case for being a jerk when my brother and sister-in-law already have a lot going on. Not the a-hole. Is he being entitled? Yes. But they're first-time parents who are being overly cautious. Cut them some slack and understand that once their kid starts licking the floor, they'll be over it. I think you handled it perfectly. Not the a-hole. You've been more than accommodating. You've invited extra guests. You have given permission for said extra guests to bring a dog. You have done what you can, but to ask for any further accommodations is going over the top. New babies can be stressful, but at some point, you need to go into public, or a family's home, and just see what happens without controlling the whole situation. Not the a-hole. If you're planning something with multiple people, such as a family gathering, it's pretty normal that not everyone can make it, so you shouldn't need to switch dates just for your brother to come. Also, if your brother feels uncomfortable with having dogs around his baby, he should be able to keep watch over his baby himself, in my opinion. My daughter, 16 female, is spoiled. I'm not going to lie. My wife, her mom, died when she was really young, and my own mom helped raise her and lives with us. My mom spoils her because grandma, and because she feels bad for her, honestly. And honestly, I haven't always been as attentive as I should be, and sometimes it is just easier in the moment to give in, though I know I've been a crappy parent for it. My daughter got in big trouble at school recently. She paid someone to write a paper for her and was unapologetic about it when she got caught and tried to blame it on the other person and lie about it. I was telling my late wife's sister about it. She lives in another country with her family and kids, ages 29 to 6, because they're a blended family. She said, "Oh, you should send her to stay with me." She and her husband are much stricter parents, and 29 male turned out fine. I really wanted to get my daughter away from my mom for a while. I told my daughter and flew with her to sister-in-law's, then left after 2 days while she stayed. It was a punishment, but also she hasn't seen sister-in-law and those cousins since age 11 due to virus and international travel costs, so it would be good for her for that reason. My mom was mad at me, but couldn't really stop me, and even she knows my daughter is spoiled, even if she encourages bad behavior sometimes. My daughter was very unhappy to be there. She already knew she'd have to do chores and be more respectful and have rules about things like her phone, which is attached to her arm normally. Their kids are much better behaved. It was embarrassing, honestly. After I left, it seemed to improve though. Of course, she was upset and mad and nasty over text, but sister-in-law said it went well overall, and she's been better behaved since she got back. For example, when I ask her to do something like take her dishes into the kitchen, she does it. I also said if she kept on the same track, I'd send her back, so she's been better behaved for that reason. My mom is still very upset at me and saying it was cruel and neglectful for me to send her away like that, even if it was for her own good. I said she needed the reality check. And of course, my daughter herself is still upset, but just not as openly mad about it because she knows she's already on thin ice. But it was clearly effective. Yes, the a-hole. This is a way of parenting I'll never understand. You admitted yourself you're a crappy parent. You allow your daughter to be spoiled. Instead of talking to your mom to stop spoiling her, you abandon her to a different country after a duck-up. I'm stuck on the fence, but I'm going yes, the a-hole. I think my issue is that you can send someone away and have them learn routines, but you have to keep those routines in order to be successful. If you aren't keeping routines, you basically just made your sister-in-law a punishment. Not the a-hole, but you need to grow a backbone and learn how to parent your own kid. It's not fair to set up your sister-in-law as the bad guy all the time, and you need to get your mother in line if she's part of the problem too. Too bad if she gets mad and throws a tantrum. That's her problem, not your problem. It's important for your kid to respect you, not just like you, and same with your mother.